for us it's truly an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us. This year that we celebrate our 50th anniversary, we couldn't wish for better way to do it, and having here you, an inspiration for all of us, and it's something that we never forget. So I'm not going to speak anymore because I can see you are eager to get the microphone. So I'm just saying that you are very welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us, Professor. You have this time for listening to the speech, and after we have time for Q&A. So, and please share your thoughts, your questions, anything. We want you to enjoy the session. Professor, thank you very much.
So, thank you. I had the privilege to listen to the end of your presentation today, so we have a close privilege. And it was interesting. I've been coordinating the doctorate in Milano for 15 years, so I know a little bit what it is. I was particularly attentive when there was somebody saying the crisis of the second year. I know it very well. Normally people cry. If people do not cry the second year, means that something is not working well. Because it's the moment in which you start having ideas and thinking that everything, finally you can do what you imagine, and you start to read. And the more that you read, the less you understand what you want to do. So what appeared to be very clear, at a certain point appears totally confused. But normally people recover, so the one that's in a second year be quiet, that afterward things started to reshape and you find your direction. And yes, also she told me a little bit how, at least I know that you are not all of this university, but how this university works, that by many ways similar to the one that was at least in Milano. So theoretically I should talk for 1 hour, but I will try to be shorter because for me I have also to be enriched in talking with you. So if I only talk, I feel squeezed, and instead I would like to have a time to talk afterward and to listen something for you and react. Given that when I've been asked if I wanted to participate and talk and say something, I have to say that I've not really understood what the transformation could mean, so many different things. So I put together a summary that had the idea of transformation inside. Maybe I could also tell other stories, but this is why I want to speak not so much, and afterwards to readapt maybe what I can, if I can give you some my point of view, maybe of something that will not be included in this. So if it is about the transformation, well, you will see. I don't know if this title, probably as the title should be, is sufficiently strange. So if you don't know my language, probably you don't understand what is the meaning. And I hope that the meaning will be clear during the discussion, and also because we can talk about transformation. Of course, as also I said yesterday in another meeting, some of the things that we talk about could appear, the one that I talk about could appear more social or philosophical based, or now also politically based. Yes, of course, but I am a designer, so I look to the things as a designer, trying to extract what could be useful for a designer. And in my view, the designer, even the PhD, has to be capable to steal ideas from many different areas to put them together. Of course, you cannot ask to who is stealing something to have the same kind of deepness than the one that study all the life in that. But this is our condition. So we have to put together many different things. And if there is something that has to be grounded, it's what is specifically of design. And this very often is a problem for all of us, the young, but also the not so young. But okay, I have already a problem here. Which one is? This is so big. It was complicated. You know,
A lot of things to improve.
my digital gap. What happened now? But you
No, yes.
yeah. Okay, fantastic. So, the beginning is to... That works? Okay, so the beginning is to give a kind of diagram proposing something that I see as the main concern in between the many that we can have in this moment. And of course we live a very normal thing to say that we are in a global society, so what does it mean to work in many different ways as a designer in a global society? And normally when you talk about the global, you have some image like this. So it's global, so the scale is the planet, you see everything. As every complex issue can be described in many ways, so we could describe it here. So for instance, here you see the density of people and cities and lighting represent where the habitat of the people are. And there is a lot of information in this kind of image. But the global condition can be described also in different ways. And many years ago, I found this description done by Anthony Giddens that I like a lot, and I think that is very useful for us, because it's a way to talk about globalization starting from where you are. So the globalization is not necessarily something that asks you to talk about the very general view of the planet, but the globalization is something, so you are in a condition of globalization when you wake up in the morning and your mood can change in relation to something that happened in Australia. Yesterday it was very sad because they listened to the election in Australia. I don't know if you listened about it. It was really very sad. Therefore, you are in a globalized situation when something that happened very far away can have an impact in your life. Therefore, it's a way to talk of globalization moving from where you are, from the place in which you are. And it has to be added, even though it's normally the less visible, that for Giddens and for myself, modestly, is not only that your life is influenced from something that happens very far away, but it's true also the vice versa. So what you do can influence something that can happen also very far away. So I find this way of looking to globalization very interesting because it do not give any judgment if it is good or not. It only talk about a change in the state. Once upon a day, or also today, because not every place is globalized in the same way, you can have your life and your life will be impacted by what is more or less in a sphere that is physically nearby. Today, your quality of life, what you can do, what you can feel, what you can think, is influenced both from what is from inside, nearby, but also something that is very far away, and it depends on the kind of technology that you are using. I like to call this condition the hyperlocal. Okay, this is a little bit a catchy term, but hyper has to be intended in the two possible meanings. It's hyperlocal because, for reasons that we will see in a while better, it's so local that it's your body. So the most local place is you in your little bubble in which you are living in that moment. And we will see this is more and more true, the more and more the individualization of society. So to say that the local is your neighborhood, we should and we will discuss about what is the neighborhood. So at the end of the day, the local is yourself, that you have a physical body and you are physically in a place. And depending on the technology that you use, you can have access or be related to something that could be very nearby or very far away. Therefore, it's a double local because it's very near to you, around your body, but at the same time you can be influenced. So it's a hyper because it's a very super local that has the potentiality to be influenced and influence something that could be very far away. And this new dimension in which we live, that is local and at the same time so open to something that could happen in other parts of the planet, is the condition in which all of us are, at least all of us, the ones that are living in a globalized conditions. And a lot of people, maybe not 100% of the population, but a lot of the population of the planet today is living in these conditions. And it's very important in my view, much more than I'm capable to do now, to understand the specificity of this condition of being at the same time so local and so connected with the world, and this kind of tension in between having the idea that you have a view on whatever happened in the world, at the same time you feel to be on yourself and at the end alone. So we as designers, we used to say one of the specificity of design is to move from the point of view of the people. Maybe somebody says the user, we should say the human being in the different condition. In any case, to assume a point of view that is the point of view of who is living a certain condition. And therefore, this way to represent the globalization is very good because it's the one that positions ourselves in the condition in which people are. So people are living the globalizations because they are in the situation that we said before. And to try to understand, to describe who are these people that we are working with, or referring to. So they are connected individuals, because we are all connected now, more or less, but I have some gap, as we have seen, but I'm connected too. We live in a hybrid space that is both physical and digital, and very importantly, we cannot escape to face problems that are very complex. So I will come back several times probably on this issue about complexity. My generation is the one that at a certain point, inverted comma, for the Western people, discover complexity. You are all young, maybe you do not know, but the dominant paradigm was the mechanistic paradigm that was a reductionist, so to reduce the complexity to something that appeared to be simple. And this has given its own imprinting in the way you're thinking, for instance, for designer and for design, the idea that you can control the all information and arrive to design for the best. Every time that you say, I'm making a research to have all the information, design for the best, you are doing a reductionist position. Because in the complexity that we have discovered that we cannot escape from complexity, and I will add, I do not only do not want to escape, but I have changed totally my position. I think that the more it is complex, the better it is, for some reason that we can discuss afterwards. In any case, you can like it or not, we cannot escape from facing the complexity. And in time, this issue of being facing very complex issue move from some scientist or some very special student toward more and more people. So every one of us has to learn how to navigate into this complexity and discover that nobody can control it, that nobody can know exactly what will be the result, the final result of what you're doing. So everybody is pushing toward a zone of such a comfortable zone, because it's comfortable to think, if I really think well, if I design well, I can know what I'm doing, what will be the result. And to say, in any case, I'm not designing for the optimum, but I'm designing for what I can understand now in this moment, and I don't know what really will happen, but this opens a lot of ethical, cultural, methodological issues. Connected individual living in hybrid space, facing complex issue. All this together is changing the forms of the society. So we are designers, we like to use the term form in the same way that we are form or physical object. We can talk about forms in the organization that the measure which is society. So we have been accustomed for a long time of having social form that was quite stable in time or changed very slowly. And therefore we assumed that this form, the social form, had not to be designed because they were quasi-natural reorganization of the society. When things move very fast and when we enter in this totally new hyper-local way of view, in any case, in this kind of a condition, we discovered that the social form had to be designed. And afterward, we discovered that nobody can really design the social form. But in some way, they are not natural, they do not simply happen, but something has to be done to make them happen in a certain way. Letting everything open, what will really be the implication of our work, but in any case, we cannot escape to try to give some platform, to give some environment in which this new social form will happen. So, what are some characters that we can see? At the moment, I will tell you two, I hope to be short, I'm not sure, a short story that are not the 300% character, but only the two that are more, for me, are more worrying in this moment. If we look to what is happening in the cities, but not only in the city, I can tell you, I live in a village, and it's happening also in that my valley. Progressively, modernity means individualization. And this is not Ezio Manzini speaking, these are all the sociologists that discuss modernity. So the traditional social forms melt, and when they melt, you don't feel anymore to be part of the neighborhoods, or the clan, or the family, or whatever, and you become an individual alone, looking into what will be your life, what you can do, what you can design, etc. This is a philosophical and social issue. It's also a very pragmatical issue, because to have a society that is organized, it's to the government who has to manage the society is relatively simple. So you have to give some services related to some social form that already exists. If you have a society of individuals, everything becomes much more complicated and much more costly. Therefore, there are a lot of people discussing what we can do for this society done by lonely people. For instance, this is, you know that in UK they established, now they have something else to think, but they established a kind of ministry of loneliness. It should be ministry against loneliness, but in any case they call it the ministry of loneliness. Not because they want loneliness, but because to have 200,000 other people that do not have a conversation more than 1 month. What does it mean? It does not mean that those people is living a very sad life, but it's also very difficult socially to know what kind of services, how they can be helped and how they cannot degrade in terrible conditions. And this is a tendency, I don't know in Lisbon, but it's a tendency that is practically everywhere. In Milano, there are, when you have the families, there are much more families that are done by one person than families that are done by 2, 3, 4, 5. So something demographically is changing. This changes the way in which you can imagine the society. And there are some practical problems, as I say. It's much more difficult to have a welfare state for individual people, but also some psychological problems. And one of the psychological problems is that if you are alone, you feel much more fragile. So linked to this loneliness, there is another point that is appearing everywhere, unfortunately very concerning, that people perceive a kind of fear or a sense of insecurity. And also this is a little bit paradoxical because, for instance, I refer to places, as I imagine is here and this is in Italy, where the data say that the crime is reduction, is diminishing. But at the same time, people have the perception of to be more insecure. So somebody has to put together the two things. Why people feel to be more insecure when the reality of fact is the number of crime is reducing. My interpretation, that is not only interpretation, is loneliness. So the way in which you face the possibility or the risk because of some crime exists in any case, if you are part of a family, if you are part of a neighborhood, if you are part of a village, is totally different if you are alone someplace and you think if somebody comes here, nobody can help me. So, another point that is related to this is that we are alone but connected. And as you know, and I think that also here, there is a mechanism that, as opposed to what we hoped at the beginning as a role of the internet, people start to talk only with a similar-minded people, with a very similar one. So instead of having conversation with other and confront yourself, in this way reweave the differences in the society, progressively the society is organized in bubbles, and these bubbles are communication bubbles of people that more or less say the same thing, and this become echo chamber. So I start to say a slogan, you repeat the slogan louder, I repeat the slogan even louder, and you have this awful way that we see how things are going, the politics and whatever, you know, it's happening, not in Portugal at the moment, but in many other places. So, the summary of this is widespread connectivity, disintermediate the relationships. And this issue about disintermediation, when we started to perceive that the main effect of the spread of the new technology was disintermediation, so to eliminate all the middlemen or middlewoman. There was in between, let's say, the producer of something, a good or an idea, and the consumer or the user or the receptor of this product of idea. You can get the contact directly. And everybody, myself, I said, fantastic, this will be a society without administration, without the heavy bureaucratic things, because bureaucracy is the middleman, or the vertical organization, whatever. It could be a party, could be trade unions, could be an association, could be the church. Everything, you have a need, you have an idea, you directly communicate with who is important for you. I will not say that that bureaucracy and that vertical organization were good, but in any case they are disappearing or they are in crisis. The issue is that that organization played a role to create discussion, where this disintermediation created populism in the negative sense that we see around. So people have some emotion, somebody somewhere is capable to cultivate this emotion, and you create hundreds of thousands of people that move in a certain direction without a real place where to discuss, where to cultivate the ideas. So the parties or the association or all that organization could be very, there's a lot of problems, but they were, at the end of the day, a place where some kind of discussion happened. In the new disintermediated society, you don't have the place, the arena where this discussion happened. So we have a kind of desertification of the society because the arena of discussion are progressively disappearing. And with the disappearing of this arena and disappearing of the intermediate people, there is also another factor that when we say there is a crisis of tradition, we do not consider, so we consider, but we are not considered enough. That is also the disappearing of the traditional knowledge. So in some way, the new society, somebody called it the frictionless society, the society is so well designed that everything becomes so easy. So in the name of a user-centered, to make everything easy, we are deleting all the traditional knowledge. And if you delete the traditional knowledge, the material culture, I don't know how you call it, if you are Portuguese, you all cook in a certain way. You have a certain attitude toward the kids. You have something that glue together the society because you do something in a similar way. This is the implicit knowledge that is in some way the glue of the society because all of us do things in a similar way. If this kind of competencies are eliminated because it's easier to buy something that is pre-cooked, because it's easier to buy something that is very easy to be used, so you don't need to have some knowledge to do it. You have also a kind of diffuse de-skilling of the society. So you have people shouting in this echo chamber, being in relation only with the ones that are very similar, in the reality being alone, and very ignorant. So, connected, incompetent, loneliness. No, but maybe I hope that maybe in your situation it could be very quite diverse, but looking more nearby Italy, it's like this. But also being in London, the way in which people voted for Brexit is connected incompetent loneliness. So people alone, terrified for something that who knows what it is. In Hungary, the main issue is about migrants, and they do not have migrants. So you say, my God, how it happened? Connected incompetent loneliness. Somebody shouts at the migrants, no one knows exactly what it is, and they can be connected in some way, virtually, enough to create a bloody regime as they have now. So, but now I say something that for you is very well known. The complexity of the story cannot, or the complexity of the reality cannot be captured by one story. Every complex issue can have more stories to be told. And also the society, I think that unfortunately what I said until now, you can tell it with different words, you can give different priorities, but it's difficult not to say that this is the people with whom we also probably are part of that. But the society is not only there. So I don't know exactly in Lisbon or in Portugal how much what I'm talking about will happen, but I listened that some of you was referring to social innovation. So I can only say very quickly, as you know, some 10, 15 years ago, we, it's a large we, it's not me and my friends, started to see that in the society there was something happening that show on the contrary of what was the mainstream, on the contrary of what I've said until now. People that was active and they tried to do things in an interesting, different way. That could be collaborative, living nearby and collaborating in housing. Could be trying to rebuild the neighborhoods that have been disappeared, but they can be rebuilt as a kind of voluntary action to make them happen. Collaborative working, everywhere there are some idea or attempts to create an idea of working that could have something in common to share. Collaborative agriculture, they try to put together farmers and citizens in a farmer market, food co-op, community-supported agriculture, you can name it. A whole story about the welfare, how we can escape from a very big problem in which the idea of welfare as it's been last century can be rethought without throwing everything away, as it is the mainstream in this moment, but keeping the welfare, but imagine how the welfare can be reorganized in the contemporary society, and the key word is collaboration. And we put together a number of ideas. In our language will be service ideas that have been very innovative. Innovative in a radical sense. It means they did something that was not improving what already exists, but do it at the local scale, at the hyper-local scale, in a totally diverse way. Mainly they are ideas to solve some social problems. This is social innovation that is mainly based on the reshaping of the system, considering that, yes, we are individual, and the traditional form of social form has melted, but we can choose to collaborate. So the strength of the term collaboration is that it's not the collaboration of the past. Many culture, in many farmer culture, people collaborated to work in the field. But that was not by choice, it was the only way to solve the problem. Now we talk about all those are a form of collaboration of people that have been individualized by the trend in the society, and at a certain point choose to collaborate. So our new form of collaboration by choice. And at a certain point, we, the designer, or some of us, started to look to this innovation and think that maybe design could play a role, and to help in doing it, to help in making this kind of interesting things happen, so to trigger and to support the one that exists, because the innovation, as probably you know, as a technological innovation, as a trajectory from the invention to the first prototype towards something that is more mature. The social innovation is the same. Somebody invented, we call them the social heroes, the one that has the capability to make something new against all the environment in which they are. And afterward, you have to, if you want that to remain in time and to consolidate and to spread, you have obviously to create a condition in which you don't need to be a hero. So in my wording, I call it a transformative normality. So what we should do is to help this original idea to evolve in a way not to lose the positive term of result, practical result, in terms of social value, element that you had in this original social invention, but at the same time to make it more accessible, and therefore you don't need to have somebody that devotes all his life to make a food co-op, or to make a gang, or to make a co-housing, as it is at the beginning, but you can be more normal, have your life, have your priority, at the same time be part of one of these things. And the things in any case are done in such a way that they are disruptive in relation to the main system. So they propose something that the main system is not proposed. I'm very quick on this because I imagine that this is the part that you should know, because it's the most obvious. So when after 10 years that we have worked on social innovation, design for social innovation, there are some results. And maybe on this I have to stop for a while, because maybe it's a contribution, at least for the discussion. So the first, the most important issue is modernity means the melting of the traditional society, of the traditional social form. And when we work, I think also you very frequently, and we say we should do something together to move towards sustainability, we talk about communities. So it's very difficult not to use the term community. I use it, and I think that many of us use it. But when we use it, what we really mean with the term community. And maybe if we have time, I can tell how things changed in my mind, but I don't know if this is so important. Let's say that very often when you say community, the image that comes into your mind is the community of the past. The village, the neighborhood, as it was for your mother or your grandmother, the family, the clan, as they was once upon a time. So, in the imagination of people, the term community is still that one. So when you say community, normally what came in mind are images of the past. Now, you can be, maybe, I don't know, nostalgic for the community of the past, I'm personally not nostalgic at all. I will never come back to the community of the past. Because once you have your freedom as individual, you cannot be put again in the cage of those kind of community. Therefore, for me, I'm very happy that those communities are finished. At the same time, somebody could have other idea, but in any case, the community of the past are past. And the only thing that we can know for sure of the future that we will not go back to the past. And if we have now somebody, and this is very difficult for us, that is talking about community referring to the past, they are bloody liar, and they are referring to an ideological idea of community that very often is the most conservative and reactionary, as we see today. So they are not, they could not propose exactly the community of the past. They propose an ideology that is based on the memory of the past to say something that normally is against the human freedoms, etc. So we are in a very difficult condition because on one side we have the neoliberals, as perfectly said by Mrs. Thatcher when they say, she said there is no such a thing as a society. To say that there is no society, there are no community, there are only individuals. And the all neoliberals are pushing in this direction. Push each one of us being alone, being performative, being smart, being quick, being winner, with the result that we have a lot of people that are not perceive themselves as smart, slow, and winner, and so you have a lot of people that are very angry. And the other one that come up and say to all those people that are angry against the one that are saying society is only the society of the winner, says, come with us, that we are talking about the people, we are talking about the community, the identity, our nation, our country, our whatever. And they propose another kind of community that is an ideological reproduction of the community of the past. Social innovation is so important also because it tells us something that is, in my view, very interesting for us. So the communities that are emerging from the social innovation have a lot of characteristics that I will list now. Somewhere in the title, I call them light communities. So, meaning the term light in a positive sense. If some of you have read the Italo Calvino lectures, the American lectures, one of the chapters is on lightness. And he explained very well that lightness is not necessarily shallow. Lightness is light. And it could be a value. Maybe it could be a value also to be heavy, said Calvino. But he says, I'm capable to talk about the quality of lightness. And I'm not capable to talk about the quality of heavy community today. I am capable, for what I learned from looking to the social innovation, about the quality of light communities. Light communities means communities that are first of all intentional, so people choose to enter the community, they are by choice. Secondly, they have a core but they do not have borders. So the communities of the reactionary are defined by walls. Who knows what happened inside, but we have walls that divide clearly us against the others. This new community have a center of something that we do together, but the borders do not exist or are highly permeable. They are reversible. So you can enter and you can exit. For instance, we had in the last century some kind of community that were by choice, the hippies community, for instance. But that one was by choice, so it was not a traditional community of the past. It was a community of the modernity, so people choose. But the choice is a big ideology, and afterward everything depends on the ideology. So what you do in your community depends on what has been said in this ideology. And this, for instance, creates a kind of sense of, well, if you want to step out, it's difficult because morally, ethically, it seems that you are a betrayer if you go around. The new community have not this, they have some ideology very light, but it's possible to enter, it's possible to exit. And what they keep together the community, what they make this group of people a community is that they do something together. What they do together is negotiable, so it's not written in a kind of pre-ideological definition, but it is something that the members of this community negotiate. They are project-oriented because to make all this happen, you have to have a strong capability that in our wording is a design capability to make happen something that otherwise will not happen, putting together some elements. So, all this, I maybe look at you, I don't know if you have something image here, but I can give you one example. I use the example of a hippie community that you don't know, but maybe you read about it. I know better from my age, so I know what it is. And the hippie community was a community which was voluntary, it was not forced to enter. But this was very static. It was given how an hippie has to be, how behavior has to be, how you have to behave in your relationship with human beings, so for instance, male and female, and the kids, and the nature, and everything was given. And if you did something, it was not negotiable by the group, because it was given. If you look to a hippie community and you move to a co-housing, I think that you have a co-housing also here, the co-housing have an ideology, because everybody has an ideology. There's a big idea that A, if we share something, we can have some practical advantage, and B, I like to have neighborhoods that we say hello, we talk, we have a little bit of relationship. If you don't like to have a relationship with your neighborhood, you don't enter, and if you don't need to have anything to share, maybe also. But it's not defined as what you have to share and which are the real effective relationships that you have to have with your neighbors. And all the co-housing that I know, and that my group in Milano has promoted several of them, creating a platform to make them possible, easier, it's the same group that decide what you want to share, how much, in which way, what are the rules, your rules, so you decide your own rules. So you negotiate with the group what you want to do together. So it's a community that is light, because it's not imply every aspect of your life. It includes some elements that are negotiated in the group. In the norm, there is also what happens if you want to go get out. So it's considered the possibility to get out. And the best of them has also some norm related to not to close yourself in your group. So maybe this is a discussion that we can do. Co-housing have a problem. They could move toward a gated village if they are not open. So all the issues that are here are important. So it's co-housing that is only of young white people in a career is not a good example of a social group, because they are too homogeneous, and the risk is to create what is called a gated village, so a group of people that are separated by the others. This is why the most wise one say the group has to be mixed. We have to have not only male and female, but also somebody more rich, somebody more poor, somebody elderly, somebody young, and now maybe some immigrants. And when you create a group like this, you can be sure that it's sufficiently open. A second point of this community is that in the hyper-local, apparently you can create all your links outside from the physical place. So your body is in a physical place, but you don't care where are the bodies of the others, because you communicate only in the digital environment. This kind of new community tried to find a relationship with the place. And again, as for the community of the past was the kind of natural environment where people was born. This was true also for the place. So the place existed in the impression of people as a kind of natural thing. So I live in this neighborhood, I live in this village, this is my place. With the recent transformation, people is more and more detached from the place. And these communities are reintroducing the idea that it's important to be linked to a place. So in the same way that we say that there are communities by choice, we could say that there are places by choice. So the place exists only because there are a community that decide living nearby to give a meaning, to make something happen in that place. So there is at the same time the building of the community and the building of the place. And there is a kind of double interaction in between the way in which you build the community and the way in which you build the place. Progressively, we understood the community to work well and also to have power. Because at the beginning, the hero, the power of the hero is let's go squat this area and we make a community garden and we defend ourselves against the police that has been sent by the real estate owner. You can do it for 1 day, 1 week, but if you want something that lasts in time, this idea that the power is only, even though it's very important, the energy that people have in the moment in which they do something, on the long run it cannot work. Because nobody can maintain that level of tension. And also, it will not spread, because there are not so many heroes that have the strength of squatting and fighting against the police to have this community garden. Therefore, at a certain point, the one that works well is the one in which they find a relationship with the institutions. It means to other elements that have powers. And if I go on in the example of the community garden, moving from the most well-known one in New York, that is the one that I had in mind when I make the example of squatting and fighting against the police. If you go there now, you find fantastic 400 community gardens. Some of them is there since 30 years. And where you enter, there is a poster that says Green Thumb Organization. And the Green Thumb Organization is one section of the council, New York Council, so it's an institution. It's one part of the garden and sport assessor of the New York. So they found a way to, and now if you want to start a community garden, I think also here, I imagine, for sure it's like this in many other places I know, you are not to squat something. So you can talk with somebody and to organize a way to create. So it becomes less heroic, but more accessible. So we will not have had, if they continue on the New York case, 400 and more community gardens since 30 years, if there was something. So how you create networks that are conscious of the issue about power. And here probably we go to the story about politics of every day, which maybe I can come back afterwards. So once when we started to look to this community, we was very attentive to have a very only peer here. It's very important that they are peer-to-peer, but if you want to last in time, they have to integrate also somebody that can bring the power. I was without power. And finally, a little bit related to the issue about to be competent, ignorant, it's very important that when you say the community that are much a kind of mesh of networks, include also the knowledge that is needed. So how, in some way, as you see, maybe I've not said so clearly, at the beginning when we started to look to this social innovation, we was fascinated by the beginning of the story when you have a group of peers that say, you know what, we want to have this garden, or you know what, we want to have a co-housing, or you know what, we want to organize a food co-op. And they were peer with the same knowledge, with the same power, and the power was only to make things happen. If you look on the long run, and if you want, as I want, to spread these ideas, and to spread this different way of doing things, we have seen progressively that the network has to include also the institutions, has to include also the knowledge that is needed, because it's not said that the normal knowledge is enough to make what you want. And this aspect of including expertise in the knowledge, in the network, it's really one of the crucial ones. In between the knowledge, there could be also the design knowledge. And because of whatever this organization do, they are, maybe they don't tell it, maybe they don't know it, it's not important, but if we are designers, we can recognize that they are working as designers. So they are designing the condition that permit to this initiative to start at the beginning and afterward to evolve in the social innovation trajectory from the original inventions towards something that is more consolidated. And to help to happen it in the most positive way, very often the normal, diffuse, widespread design capability is not enough, and therefore you need to have somebody that helps the process to move in the right direction. So in some way you need designer. So we have active people with a collaborative attitude who gets result, producing two things, producing result, practical result. I have the garden, I have the food, I have the services in the house, I have this and that, but at the same time producing also the social value that depends on the collaboration. That is mutual trust, empathy, friendliness, what is the glue of a society. And this could be called collaborative and competent networks. Now, I think, what is now? Half an hour? Eh? 1 hour now? You have to tell me what was I was not looking for you.
You should. Please continue.
Well, what I wanted to do now, I do it or not? Is to move from this level, that for me was not a theory, it was an observation. So at least in my intention, it was sufficiently practical, but practical without giving more precise example. And I made this change in my presentation yesterday after some discussion, so I thought that to tell you a little bit some story, in particular one, that is the one that I know better, could give a more sensitive perception of what I'm trying to say. And I will take Milano, first of all, because I know some city more than others, but of course I know Milano. But also because, well, now it's embarrassing to be said by me that I come from Milano, but in my view it's a very interesting place. So, the first observation is, if we look to Milano, that by the way, Milano had a huge crisis for more than 20 years, and afterward, in the last 10 years, it's in contra-trend in relation to all the other cities in Italy, and it's the only city in Italy that people say, not only the numbers say that it's improving, but the people says it's improving. Because for a long period, people said it's worse and worse. Now it's rare to find somebody. The worst thing that can be said normally is, let's hope that we last, because it seems so incredible. And a lot of this boiling, interesting things come from, I already said, kind of boiling pot of a bottom-up initiatives. That could be, they are independent projects and they are widespread in the city. Maybe some of you have been in the Milano week, and you know that the Milano week is, nobody goes to the fair, everybody goes to see what happens in the city. And I'm not talking only of that, but to give you an idea, that kind of energy in the city that has been capable to make emerge so many different points in which happens something interesting, is not what I'm talking about. It's near to what I'm talking about, but it's a little bit the same spirit. Maybe you know, maybe not. At the beginning, when they started to do this, they was not recognized by the Comune di Milano, and even less by the Salone del Mobile. Because the Salone del Mobile see these things happening in the city as a competitor, and the Comune di Milano see all these things happening in the city as a disturbance to the normal way of the life of the city. Therefore, it happened breaking the laws, or not exactly the laws, but breaking what was normal, imagined to be done. And afterward, a little bit, as I said, for the community garden in New York, now you have a very nice balance in between those activities from the bottom and what the Comune is capable to do to try to make their life easier, and so to trigger and to permit to many of these initiatives to flourish. Okay, but you can say, yes, but this is very peculiar, it's related to the story of the Salone Jubileo, but I think that one of the motivations that what I'm going to say now is better in Milano than in many other places, because all the society from the bottom and from the top has understood that there is not only what you can decide from the center, but there could be some energy in the society, and if you are attentive, this could be something good for everybody. So maybe because I am a designer, but I pretend that sometimes I say, and it's to do it now, that the city has learned how to manage social innovation, learning from experience in a very specific place that is called the Salone and the Fuori Salone and the Design Week, as it is in Milan. So we have had a lot of initiative. This is a co-working, as it could be the one, the beautiful one that we saw yesterday, and we have 63 of them. There are Fab Labs, Makerspace, there are farmer markets, there are 74 social streets. Social street means the people that live in the street that put them together to try to do different kinds of things for themselves and for the society, for the neighborhoods. We have bars that extend their function in a kind of concierge. You understand what is a concierge? So people have more and more the problem of receiving parcels or having somebody asking for information, and we don't have concierge anymore. So there is the beginning of creating this kind of point where information about the citizens surrounding can happen. And this can happen in a bar, as in this case, or can happen in the kiosk, the newspaper kiosk that are economically in crisis with the journal, and they try to find a new way of having a role. So they do not only sell journal, but they become a kind of neighborhood concierge to know, to give information, to permit people to send or to receive something. The same was something very traditional, probably also here, the local market, the municipal market originally, and they are also day one in crisis because as all the shops, they are in crisis for the big distribution, for Amazon and for these kind of things. So some of them started to regenerate themselves, being a market, but at the same time being a kind of social center, and therefore putting together different kind of cultural and social activity to work together with having what normally a market do, so selling some food. So I could continue because the boiling pot is with a lot of things, and we can say this is a kind of diffuse design capabilities. At this point we can ask ourselves what is the specific role of design experts in this story. And I will tell you one story. That is one, so if I want to make a little bit, maybe it's crystal clear for you what the designer do facing what I described until now. But maybe it's not so clear for everybody, so I will spend 5 minutes to tell one story. Of course, when you say one story, it's not, but there is something in this story that could be extrapolated to some others. So this is the story of something that comes from the co-housing and evolved to something that is much better than a co-housing, that is a social housing based on collaborative living. So what happened is that in Italy, as everywhere, the social housing only meant houses with a relatively low rent or relatively low price if you want. So the social was only the idea of offering a house that could be affordable for people that could not have a house at the moment. But, and I'm very proud of it because largely thanks to some work that has been done by my group, The Social Housing Foundation of the Big Bang in Milano, this Carico, is the biggest social housing foundation, started to change the meaning of social. It's not only relatively cheap house, but social means that who will live there, we can help them in sharing something, doing something together. So to have some elements similar to a co-housing, but in this case in an institutional system. So what we have a place. You can like it or not, in any case, this is the architecture. The good thing of the example that I'm showing is that it's already at least 7 years old. So it's not only to see, oh, they did this, let's imagine what will happen. If you go to Milano, you can visit it, and you visit a community that has been consolidated since, and the Social Housing Foundation will be very successful, so they have many others. So I show this one, this is the first one, and now they have many of them. So there is a place, and this place in the Social Housing Foundation, etc., etc. And this place has a community, in the sense that I said before. The people that are living there have different forms of interactions that are much more than a normal condominium, and most importantly, better than in a normal condominium, because very often, at least in Italy, people say the worst thing in the world is the assembly of the condominium. And we can come back on this, because this tells you the importance of the environment in which things happen. You can have an environment that push people toward the conflict, or you can have an environment that help people to collaborate. So these examples are an environment that help people to share something and collaborate. The normal condominium is in some way, I think unconsciously, built to create antagonistic relationships in between the people that are living there. In any case, there is a kind of form of community. There has been in the history a co-design process to arrive to what you see, and now there is a co-production of the service. So they are auto-organized. So after they co-designed what they wanted to do together, they constitute an association. So there is a formal association of who is living there that is managing practically everything that happens. And what happens are now it's a random playroom for kids, community garden, entertainment area, food co-op, workshop to repair something, for instance bikes, and open event, because as I said before, it's very important that this community do not close themselves, but they have to be open to the neighborhood. So this becomes also a kind of a cultural center for all the neighborhoods. You can say, wow, fantastic. I think at least I say fantastic. But how it works? So why in this place it is like this, where in the majority of the condominiums is totally diverse? And in my view, we have to ask, and this is the question, what has been designed? So in which way something has been designed by people as us? So now we are talking about this collaborative living. We could say the community garden, you can say whatever I mentioned before. When you describe, you see the events. So you go there and you see something happen. Before I made a very quick journey around what you can find if you go there. But afterward, you have to ask yourself why this happened. And this happened because it's sustained by a system that technically we call the enabling system. So the system that made it possible to have all these things. It's not that make mandatory. So the enabling system cannot oblige people to do this or that. It's simply, as I said before, create an environment that help or make more probable a certain kind of behavior. And what you need, of course, as everything now, you need a digital platform. Because the digital platform, in the same way that could be something that destroys the community, is also the one that can reorganize the people. Because the problem of the people that our lives are so diverse that we never met. So when people complain that I don't know who is living at my same level in my building, it's because maybe we never met. And therefore, you need an organizer of our space and time. And this platform can, in some way, kind of a meetup, extension of the meetup idea. So why don't we meet tomorrow at 6 o'clock to discuss about this thing? So to create calendar, to create opportunity to meet, is what the digital platform can do. Of course, you need some spaces. And because if you don't have the spaces, it's difficult to do things. So there has to be a choice to have some common space to be shared. At the same time, you know very well, because there are some tragic experience, that if you give the spaces to be shared without building the community, the space will be taken by somebody and turned into something totally diverse. In Italy, we have an idea of a building built in the 60s and 70s that are called the eco-monsters, that have been designed by the best designer, the best architect, giving a lot of communal spaces. But at that time, nobody had the idea that at the same time that you build the building, you have to build the community. Because otherwise, if you have a communal spaces in Naples, you can imagine what happened. And they become the worst place to live. So you need common spaces, and you need some design tools that help the conversation. So this issue about the design tool could appear very trivial. So, for instance, probably you recognize this very similar to the IDEO cards, no? That now everybody knows. Okay, the IDEO has been so strong and so clever that they make it a kind of bestseller. But the idea that what you have to do, so if you put together some people that vaguely think that they can share something, but they don't know what they can share, in which way, etc. So these are, each one of these cards, it's a project that is not done to be really realized. It's done to make people think, to feed the conversation with what could be done. So this card is not only graphic, it's not only communication, because behind each one of the images that are explained, there is a project. What if we do this and that? And you show it, you show how it could be, you show how difficult it could be to manage, etc. So this, we are in the scenario building, if you want. And the scenario building is to create some hypotheses of how things can do, that are not the ones that will be done, but they feed for the conversation in between people that otherwise would not have ideas, what we can do together. And this helped a lot, as you can imagine. Afterwards, when we discussed it and through these scenarios, we had more or less similar ideas on what we want to do together, you have to develop it. And you say, okay, we want to have together a communal kitchen to make the parties. Okay, what does it mean to develop it? And again, you have another kind of tools. I remember somebody complaining that there are too many tools. We can discuss afterward another kind of tool that help people to understand if we are thinking to have a communal kitchen, what does it mean? What are the implications? How much can it cost? How it can be more or less organized and permit an informal conversation. Not simply somebody stand up and say, I want to have this and that, because you have some limits of space, of money, time, whatever. So this is very useful, and also this is a project. It's not only to put on the paper something, it's if you say we can offer 3 visions of a kitchen and how it can be developed, it means that you are developing it, and not to do it as it is, but to help people to understand all the implications of what you're doing. And finally, when things are done, they have to be managed. And they have to be managed largely by people that is not expert. So you can create some different kind of tutorials and platforms. Again, not the platform for designing as it was before, but the platform to coordinate the actions and the co-production tools that are the tutorials. So something that say, okay, you want to organize an association. What does it mean to organize an association? And again, also this one is not only to put on the paper something that's already there. You have to design it. And I think that I finish here. The general vision is this one, and I think that I will not explain it more. And to have something that looks like what is written here, you need a lot to do in an ecosystem. And this ecosystem has to be not designed as an ecosystem, but many elements has to be introduced to create favorable ecosystem to make, hopefully, something like this possible. Thank you.